Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen, and here's a quick look at my ball and chain cake that I recently made. It was designed for a friend of mine who got her divorce finalized and she wanted a cake to celebrate being free. So this is what I made for her. I think it came out really fun and it's cute, and if you see me use any tools or supplies you can use, check the link in the description below. It'll take you to my website. And also, if you find this video helpful, feel free to throw a little tip my way, a little thanks. I would really appreciate it. All right, and now I'm going to show you all this. Now in this video, I'm going to show you all the steps you need so you can follow along and actually make this cake yourself, just like me in the kitchen. I'm starting by dividing my cake batter between two Pyrex bowls. When you bake in Pyrex bowls, make sure you do not preheat your oven. You're going to put those in cold. I had greased them with a little Crisco, put a little piece of parchment paper in the bottom. And you got to cook them at a lower temperature. Instead of like 350 Fahrenheit, you do 325. And then for a little longer, you just got to watch those centers. All right, once they cooled, I took them out. As you can see, kind of trimmed off the lumpy parts on the top. They make delicious cake scraps. And while it ain't perfect, it's good enough because I'm going to stack them together like so and make a ball. I'm going to cut them in half. So what I'm doing before I cut them is I put a mark on the sides with a little bit of icing. And that way when I restack them, if you line your little icing marks back up, they stack up properly again. And this is designed for if you are really wonky or you don't have that like cutting tool that I used right there. It will help you, line them up so they're straighter, than they originally would have been. Okay, so I have it off centered, as you can see, and I'm stacking it up to the side of the cake plate a little bit because I want to leave room for the ball and chain when I make it. And, want to put it on there. So for now, I'm just, filling in my layers. I'm making my crumb coating. I'm using just a regular American buttercream, nice and sweet, nice and thick. There goes my son. He just got home from school. So I was serious when I say I do this in my kitchen. All right, I put it in the refrigerator and let it sit up and chill for a little while. I think it was in there for about half an hour. I pulled it out, gave it its second coat of buttercream icing, stick it back into the fridge. Goodbye, cake. Okay, when I pull it out, it's ready to be covered in fondant. So what I do is I cover my cake plate with a little sprinkling of powdered sugar. And I found this way, if any fondant does get onto the cake plate, it doesn't stick to it because sometimes it's annoying to try to get it off. I know there's amazing people out there who cover their cakes before they even have it on the cake plate. I am not one of those people. I don't know if it's the cheaty way or lazy way or unprofessional way, but this is just how I do it. Now, covering the ball shape here was a little bit tricky, and I was not going to be able to successfully tuck it all without any folds or ripples. So I went for the back of the cake to let that big fold there. Everything else I tucked in nice and tight, but the back is where I let that big excess fold form. I trim off the extra with the scissors, and then I just kept kind of smoothing and rubbing it with my hand and my finger a little bit, and the heat of my hand, it just kind of melted and blended it all together. Just take your time with it. There's no rush when you do this kind of thing. I trimmed off the excess around the bottom of the cake, take it off, again, just cleaning up my cake a little bit with a fondant paddle, just to make it a little bit smoother. And then I'm ready to stick it back in the fridge for a few minutes. Okay, while that is setting up, I am going to take it back out again, so you're going to see it in a second. But for now, I'm using gum paste. Before I was using fondant, this is gum paste, and I cut out a little rectangular patch there. And I'm taking some tin foil, roughing it up, and now I'm going to press it all over my fondant. So when I had it in the refrigerator, it was only in there for a few minutes, just enough to kind of like set against the buttercream icing underneath of it, but not to the point where it's too firm, because while I'm doing what I'm doing here is I'm marking it up. I want it to look like an aged, worn ball and chain. I don't want a perfect shiny, giant marble. I'm looking for wear and tear. It was a marriage that had had a lot of wear and tear and a lot of miles on it. So I wanted it roughed up. This is going to become my chain links. Once again, I'm using gum paste. You could use fondant if you wanted to. You would have to add some Tylose powder or CMC powder to it, something like that to make it set. Otherwise, you're going to have mush. It's not going to work. So I just love gum paste because it does the job for you. But anyway, okay, so I made a bunch of links and I put them aside to dry separately. I didn't connect anything yet. And what I have are a couple of plastic cups there. I have one that I'm showing you. I cut out a rectangle. I lined the two ends of it with just another thin strip of gum paste. And those are going to become my broken shackles. So I'm going to have, like, a shackle that's no longer connected. And that's symbolizing the divorce, the freedom from the old ball and chain, as it were. So once again, roughing it up with my wadded up tinfoil just to make it look aged and weathered. Doing the same thing with the rings. I also did it, I didn't show it, but I did it with the chain links that I've made so far. Oh, no, I lied. See, I did show you. That's what I did. I just kind of sandwiched it and rolled it around till it was roughed up enough, and I was happy. Now back to those cufflinks I made. Okay, so I've got the two of them that I did the same way. They're exactly the same, just a couple. They're about the same size. It doesn't matter because no one's going to try these on, so I don't think it matters. But I made a second one, and I'm just going to put them aside and let them dry for a little while. But on the one cufflink, once it has sat a little bit, going to put the hinges on because I'm going for realism here. So I have the one hinge in the middle, and then I'm going to use the two pieces on the other one so that when they meet up, see that? That'll work. Get a little sound effect with it too. All right, this is going to now go onto the cake. I've had my cake. We kind of forgot about the cake. The cake is still existing. It's hard to see, but I used some spaghetti into that piece of loop there, and then a little bit of water, and I pushed it into the rectangle that I put on my cake. So now I've got no idea the structure of a ball and chain, but now I've got my anchor point for my chain to connect to the ball completed. Okay, going back to my links, they've sat around for a while. They've had time to harden up, so what I'm going to do is take two of my hard ones and connect it with one soft one, okay? So I, as you saw, kind of measured out the size of it, connect it with a little bit of water, kind of mush it together as best I can. It is going to lose its shape a smidgen, but it's not too bad. Now that one link that I have on the cuff, it's the same as, all the other ones. It was just a little loop I put on there. I'm going to now connect it to a dry link, okay? And that's all I'm going to do. With this cake, there's a whole lot of stopping and starting when you're working with chains because you just can't do it all or it's just going to dry wrong and it won't look right. Okay, in the meantime, I have a bunch of different colored shimmers that I put together, and it kind of created like a gray, dusty shimmer look. And I'm putting this on my cake, and I'm doing this to just kind of give it more of an aged and roughed up look. Like, if you've seen old like fishing weights or plum weights, that kind of a thing, you know how it has a little bit of shiny patches here and there, or a little bit of, more of the original finish, but then with the wear and tear, it fades and kind of loses it. That's, again, what I was going for. So I connected a piece of chain to the cake itself, as you see, connecting some of my chain to my link. Now that that's all settled, I'm going to keep going with my cuffs. I'm going to put the lock on them now. So on the one side, I just have a little rectangle, and I called that good enough because, again, not a professional when it comes to the old ball and chain mechanisms here. On the other side, I put a bigger piece, and then using the back of my paintbrush there, I just kind of made a key shape indentation in it. And as long as they match up well enough, it's good. I'm adding some of that gray dusty shimmer again to the chains and the cufflinks just so that it'll help match the cake itself. And it kind of doesn't matter how much you put on because what does it matter? It kind of doesn't matter. Now what I'm doing is I have a can of edible glaze spray. It makes things shiny. And I'm doing a little haphazard here and there on the cake as I did with the cuffs and chain. Same reason as before, just to give it more of a, worn look with it being rough and patched and everything else. All right, now that the cake is pretty much good, I'm going to just pipe some green icing onto the cake plate for grass, I guess, just to give the cake something to sit on so it looks a little more interesting. I realize now I should not have attached the chain on there on the cake because I'm holding it up, and what I edited out was my husband had to come in and hold the chain up for me so I could keep piping. But anyway, once you get it all piped in, I'm putting the one piece of cuff link there. The chain had broken off, so I just had the original link on there, which turned out okay because it was too long anyway. So yes, it was fortunate, I guess. Now I'm going to connect that link to the bit of chain that was already connected to the cake. Same thing I did before, I just took a piece of gum paste, and this is all gum paste. The only fondant I used was on the cake itself. So that piece of gum paste is connecting to the chain. I just laid the other one next to it because it's broken. And ba-bam, there you go. Pretty cool broken ball and chain cake for your divorcee, for your whatever need you have when you need a ball and chain. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it really does help me out as well. I've got a ton of other videos out there, so please take a look. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.